Hi everyone, thank you for coming back to my channel. I would like to talk about the timeline this week and some of the interesting information I just found on the internet. Okay, let's get started. If you watched my previous video, I've mentioned 4 this number from my dream. And let's take a look. From May 25th, so that's EU elections. Then May 29th is the Israel Day decided to have a re-election on September 17th. Then 4 days later, which is June 2nd, which is tied into the 14 days of celebration of the second Passover, is the end is June 2nd. It's also the day after the second ascension of Yahweh. And then June 6th, I don't know what's going on June 6th, but a lot of people talking about June 6th on the internet. So it happens to be 4 days apart from June 2nd. Then, of course, the Pentecost, June 9th to June 10th, the celebration. Okay. Then, just want to clarify the July 2nd. You can go on the archive or the government website. Is the Independence Day is supposed to be on July 2nd. The Hebrew word bar or grain may possibly be the root of our modern word for barley, but bar also has some other meanings. It means a son, in the sense of an heir. For example, Barabbas in John 18:40, it means son of the father, etc. Barley thus signifies the overcomers, who are known also as the sons of God. This term is used of Israel in Hosea 1:10 because the prophet pictures Israel as being seed scattered in the field, the world, who ultimately would bring forth a great harvest of sons. So then Paul says that the sons of God are also heirs of God. Paul was referring to the fact that the Hebrew word bar means both a son and an heir. Romans 8 was Paul's introduction to his Israel chapters, Rome 9 to 9:11. He tells us the way Hosea's prophecy will be fulfilled is only through Jesus Christ. Israel had been divorced and sent out of his house from 745 to 721 BC. God had even stripped her of the birthright name Israel. The value of barley. The first scripture relevant to any study of barley is Leviticus 27:16. It reads, "Again, if a man consecrates it to the Lord part of the fields of his own property, then your valuation shall be proportionate to the seed needed for it. A homer of barley seed at 50 shekels of silver." The value of a homer of barley in the eyes of God is 50 shekels of silver. 50 is the number of Pentecost and Jubilee. Pentecost was to be celebrated on the 50th day. Jubilee is the 50th year. Both are revelations of the outpouring of the Spirit of God. Pentecost is the time when the earnest of the Spirit was poured out. The Jubilee signifies a greater outpouring, that is, the fullness of the Spirit. Paul prayed to be filled with all the fullness of God. Thus, Pentecost is a down payment of a Jubilee, or the promise of a Jubilee. Both are depicted by the number 50. The barley is valued at 50 shekels of silver, and this associates the barley with the outpouring of Spirit, both in its earnest and its fullness. This is consistent with the revelation of the overcomers who attain to the first resurrection, or if they are alive at the end of the age, their transformation without dying. It is also consistent with the revelation of the unleavened bread at Passover and the flocks, white linen, ripening at the same time, which is used in the priestly garments. The law of first fruits. All of these details point to the fact that the barley company is the first to be raised of all of God's creatures. James 1:18 says, "In the exercise of his will, he brought us forth by the word of truth, so that we might be, as it were, the first fruits among his creation." In the book of Revelation, we are told of the 144,000 who sing a new song before the throne of God. In Revelation 14:4, these are called the first fruits unto God and to the Lamb. First fruits simply imply that a greater harvest is yet to come, even as Jesus was the first fruits of them that slept. So also are the overcomers of the first resurrection, the first fruits of others yet to come. The first fruits offering always signaled the beginning, not the end of the harvest. Paul alludes to the law of first fruits again in Rome 11:16, saying, "For if the first fruits be holy, then none is also holy. And if the root be holy, so are the branches." The first fruits always sanctified the harvest. When the first fruits of a crop, whether barley or wheat, were offered to God, then the people could go home and harvest the rest of that crop. For this reason, James tells us that the church is the first fruits of creation. When the church is harvested and brought into God's house, it is not the end of the world, but the beginning of a greater harvest. Otherwise, the overcomers are the first fruits of the church. They are the first of the first fruits. That is, the barley first fruits that were offered shortly after the feast of Passover. These are the ones who inherit the first resurrection. Revelation 26 says, "They will be priests of God and of Christ, and will reign with him for 1,000 years. The rest of the dead, both unbelievers and the rest of the believers, will not be raised until the 1,000 years is finished. Then all of the dead, small and great, will be raised. At that time, the non-overcoming believers will receive life, while the unbelievers will receive judgment, as Jesus said in John 5:28 and 29. Do not marvel at this, for an hour is coming, in which all who are in the tombs shall hear his voice, and come forth, those who did the good deeds to a resurrection of life, those who committed the evil deeds to a resurrection of judgment." It is apparent from Jesus' statement that the resurrection at the great white throne will include believers that will be given life or immortality, as well as the unbelievers that will be judged. This is why we ought to strive to attain a better resurrection. The first resurrection is the better resurrection. Those who attain the better resurrection are those who will rule and reign with Christ during the 1,000 years of the tabernacle's age. Hi everyone. Okay, so I hope this video will give you some information or some information before the rapture. I think I hopefully it's tomorrow or Monday. And I've seen a lot of people sounding the alarm on YouTube saying it's either tomorrow or Monday. But of course, we don't want to set the day, but just like a high alert, high watch day to pay attention to. Again, it's not like resetting the day. Okay, I hopefully see you guys in the next video. Bye.